First, allow me to welcome you to Asia. It's the birthplace for many of us. We see a lot of friends and partners. We also welcome our friends from Global Democracy Coalition. Without your support, this wouldn't be possible. We also want to thank the East Asia Institute for this beautiful venue. We're also excited to see our friends and partners from across Asia and across the world. Let us get started with this important forum, a democracy forum for Asia, as a lead up to the first summit for democracy in Asia. So our first panel is Asia's democratic landscapes, navigating challenges and embracing opportunities. Our moderator for this panel is Destiny Nguyen. She works in investment and banking. She has been an activist for the Vietnamese American communities for the last 15 years, especially in the efforts to honors and respects for the Vietnamese ARVN and American service members who fought side by side against communism during the Vietnam War. As the original founder of the Republic of Vietnam's next generation, her leadership helped to create a lasting and meaningful organization with membership nationwide. In addition, Destiny is also a member of the board of directors for the May 11th Vietnam Human Rights Day, an organization that commemorates the resolution of the Vietnam Human Rights Act in the Congress that was signed by President Bill Clinton in 1994. She is recognized nationally as a freelance reporter of VATV, SBTN, and some of the more popular Vietnamese news service agencies for Vietnamese abroad. Currently, Destiny is the president of the Vietnamese American communities of Central Virginia. Her responsibilities include organizing Vietnamese traditional events and being the liaison, the person between the different generations in the community. Welcome, Destiny. Take it away.
Welcome to the section on Asia, democratic landscapes, embracing challenges and opportunities. I am Destiny Nguyen, and I will be moderating. We will start with the remarks of each of our panelists. Vanna Hay, Director, Khmer Movement for Democracy. Dr. Silito Aligos, Executive Director, Council of Asian Liberals and Democrats. Dr. Elise Pham, Representative for Vietnamese Nationalist Party. Lina Rikila Taman, Director for Asia and the Pacific, International IDEA. Wen Lee is Director for International Affairs at Taiwan Democratic Progressive Party. Then we will follow with question and answer. Our first panelist is Vanna Hay. He is the father of two and a certified professional farmer in Chiba Prefecture, Japan. Mr. Hay holds a bachelor degree in digital communication from Digital Hollywood University in Tokyo, 2013. He is a current leader of Cambodia National Rescue Movement in Japan from 2018 to present. Vanna is a board member of Khmer Movement for Democracy. Vanna, you have the floor.
In the heart of Cambodia, the voice of democracy has been silenced, but a resilient spirit refuses to be extinguished. The Cambodia National Rescue Party, a peaceful opposition, banned those daring to speak for democracy facing imprisonment or worse. Yet, across the globe, a diaspora scattered by the dark legacy of the Khmer Rouge rises with a unified voice, the Khmer Movement for Democracy. From Asia to North America, Australia to Europe, Cambodians unite. Our collective voice ensures that Cambodia's true narrative reverberates globally, shattering any false image the regime seeks to project. At home, the majority struggles, burdened by debt. Workers endure harsh conditions, and children face the grim reality of labor and drugs. The Hun regime, embezzling resources, turning national lands into private property, morphing Cambodia into a vassal state for China. Amidst this adversity, the Khmer movement for democracy reaches out, transcending political lines, urging all Cambodians to reclaim control of our fate. To those who believe in a Cambodia where democracy thrives, we say, join the movement. Your voice matters. Democracy dies in silence, but the Cambodian diaspora refuses to be silent. We educate political parties worldwide on the sanctity of democratic rights, advocating that these rights must be defended at every turn. The Khmer movement for democracy stands as a beacon, reminding Cambodians at home that the fight for democracy is far from over. A day will come when we regain control of our destiny.
So time has come for all Cambodians from all walks of life, from all political parties, to unite to bring about a democratic change in Cambodia.
Together, across borders, let us echo the call for democracy. Join the Khmer movement for democracy, where the diaspora's voice becomes the anthem of hope, resonating until Cambodia is free.
Morning, leaders, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hai. I'm the director of the Khmer Movement for Democracy and also the leader of the Cambodian movement, Cambodian National Movement. Okay. And I have a slide, so I will go there. Give you briefly about Cambodia. Thank you. Okay, so we have just founded the Khmer Movement for Democracies last December, and we're going to have a launch on 23rd of March in Long Beach this month, and I'm going to be there too. So you may have already known that the Kingdom of Cambodia is very close to um, it's in Southeast Asia and it's border to Vietnam, Laos, and Myanmar. And it is a really interesting topic for the region right now because Chinese influence in Cambodia is very big and huge, and it impacts the whole region. And if you're talking about Cambodia's, we have the nature, the lands, the historic monument that is the combination of Hinduism and the Buddhism. It is called Angkor Wat, and we have living Apsara right here. They are the people of Cambodia, and they are the owner of Cambodia actually. And throughout the hardest time in 1925, that is that was the start of the genocide. It is called Khmer Rouge. In Cambodia, we call Pol Pot or Khmer Krahom, and 1.5 to 2 million people was killed during the genocides, and until 1979, and our people have raised up together, and we have the Paris Peace Accord in October 23rd, 1991, that we have a so-called UNTAC, which is the United Nations Transitional Authority in Cambodia that help us to manage to have a free and fair election in 1993. That was the very first election that we have free and fair. And after that, we have Mr. Hun Sen, can you see right there? And he is the longest uh, leader in the world. not for the better, but for the worst leader in the world, in Cambodia. And right now, his son, the eldest son, Mr. Hun Manet, became the prime minister. And I don't recognize him as the prime minister because he's not becoming the prime minister by the free and fair election. It was just a made up prime minister under his father leadership. So Cambodia is supposed to be the country for all of us. But right now, myself have sentenced to be in prison for 5 years and added another 3 years, and I cannot go back to Cambodia as I am a Cambodian living in Japan. And all of our colleagues out there could not go back to Cambodia because the current political situation is getting harder and harder. And I am here to telling you all that we need to join hands to bring about freedom, human rights, and democracy toward our country that is needed. And uh, the Khmer movement for democracy is to connecting people who aim for change in Cambodia for the better change. So why that we have to have that movement? Because the current situation in Cambodia, you can see right now, even the monk, the environmental activists, the labor union, the political analysts, and also the common people have been killed under the regime. They just advocate for things that is right, but they are being killed under the regime. And as you can see, on July 16 in 2016, the assassination of Dr. Kamlay in a broad daylight in Phnom Penh, it is really crucial. And I call Dr. Kamlay is a 1,000-year born Cambodian. He is really intelligent, and all of the word he said, it inspired every single Cambodian, not only the normal people, but the scholar, the civil servants, everyone listened to him. So I could call him as the 1,000-born Cambodian that could inspire Cambodian to fight for change. But unfortunate on July 6th, I'm sorry, on July 10, not 16. That's my mistake. On July 10, 2016, he was assassinated. And this is the current situation for women in Cambodia. The women advocacy for human rights, the human rights defender, um, her name is Jimsy Tall, and her name is Saint Thierry, which is the sister of the current chair of CAL, Mr. Saint Madi, the sister of Mr. Saint Madi. She is the Cambodian American lawyer, and if she's not um, caring about Cambodian people, she should stay in the United States and living a good life over there. And she's sacrifice herself to be the voice for Cambodian women in Cambodia. And right now she's in prison for just advocate for human rights. And as you can see, she's holding the Paris Peace Accord 23rd October 1991, and he's appealing to the international community who have signed the accord to come up together and speak out what we can do to restore the democracy, human rights, and freedom for Cambodia. So you already seen him in the other page, but I would like to show you again that his funeral that was happened in 2016 brought 2 million people on the road. So he really intelligent, and his word is now combined to a book. So our Cambodian is going through his legacy, and we will fight until we can have a better change in Cambodia and be able to have um, justice for him and the family. And right now, the opposition leader is being in jail under exile and under repressions. You can see Mr. Sam Rainsy, Madame Musupur, and Mr. Ng Ying over there. They are all on self-exile because they are not be able to go back to Cambodia. And our other leader, Mr. Thaksinta, and also Mr. Sun Chai, which is the leader of Candlelight Party, the vibrant opposition's party in Cambodia, could not be free because of the permanent authoritarian regime repressions. So we would like to have freedom for them to fight in the free and fair election, but unfortunately it's not. And also the Cambodian National Recruit Party, which is Khanak Pak Sang Kru Chiet. Mr. Kum Sukha is currently the leader of the party, and it is our leader now being in jail, and also the Cambodian National Recruit Party is banned from joining the election, even though it is not a free and fair election, but we also ban. So that is the current situation. And the other current situation here, you can see the people, the public servants, scholars, their voice should be heard under the free and fair election. But now their voices had been shut down because there is no free and fair election. And also there is no free and fair, there is no free medias. So the free media would cover free and fair election, but because there is no media, so free and fair election is not there. So then, right now, we cannot have a change in Cambodia under the election system. So we created a new initiative called Khmer Movement for Democracy, which is an organization that could bring all voices of Cambodian, even they are living here in South Korea, in Japan, and in every other place, come together as one voice to free Cambodia. And we will do, we would plan, do, and make responsible and get the result together and evaluate the results. And then until we get Cambodia as a nation where genuine democracy prevails and all Cambodian dignity is fully respected. Thank you so much for your attention.
Our next speaker is Wen Lee. Wen Lee is Director of International Affairs at Taiwan Democratic Progressive Party. Previously, in 2020, Lee found DPP Lianqian County Chapter, based in the Matsu Islands, an offshore island group located only 20 kilometers off the coast of China, Fujian Province. Is director of the newly launched Matsu Island chapter from 2020 to 2024. Lee worked on many cross-border maritime issues include rupture of submarine cables, the encroachment of Chinese sand grasping vessels, illegal fishing, smuggling practice, local corruption, environment issue, and more. During his term, Lee entered the election for Matsu's legislative seat twice. Raising from the DPP vote, share from less than 5% to 23%, Lee has worked on the staff of Taiwan's National Security Council as well. As at the Prospects Foundation, the DPP Department of China Affairs, the DPP Department of International Affairs, and the Taipei Times, Lee is also a writer and researcher on foreign policy and regional security issues. His writing has been published in Diplomat, the national interests. His writing has been on show on Liberty Times, Nine-Line, and other media outlets.
Good morning to our distinguished panelists and members of the audience attending the Global Democracy Coalition meeting in Seoul. I am Wen Li from the Department of International Affairs at the Democratic Progressive Party in Taiwan. My sincere apologies for not being able to attend the conference in person. I would like to use this opportunity to share with you the challenges that threaten Taiwan's democracy, which includes both external acts of coercion from China and internal challenges that we must address. Over the past 3 decades, the world has witnessed Taiwan's transition from an authoritarian state to a full-fledged democracy. Taiwan currently ranks among the top countries in various indexes conducted by respected organizations such as Freedom House or The Economist, including rankings on human rights, freedom of press, and gender equality. Taiwan was also the first country in Asia to legalize same-sex marriage, and our country also performs well in various rankings related to medicine and public health. The accomplishments of Taiwan's hard-won democracy have only been possible through decades of social and political movements and efforts of the Taiwanese people. However, Taiwan's democracy also currently faces many immense challenges. On the military front, China has never ruled out the use of force and constantly threatens to invade Taiwan. China often uses its military exercises as an aggressive form of communication, aiming to influence and coerce the behavior of Taiwan and other countries. China attempts to prevent other countries from interacting with Taiwan. In the air, China is constantly sending fighter jets near Taiwan's airspace to harass and intimidate the public. The steady increase in PLA exercises attempts to normalize China's military activities in the Taiwan Strait. On the seas, China is sending its naval ships across the median line of the Taiwan Strait. Other gray zone threats often pose challenges to Taiwan's offshore islands, such as Kinmen and Matsu, including the potential use of fishing vessels or sand dredgers to damage our fishing industries and wear out the resources for our Coast Guard. Submarine cables between Taiwan and the Matsu Islands have also been damaged by Chinese vessels. Recently, China has used an accident involving a capsized Chinese speedboat near Kinmen as a pretext to escalate its pressure on Taiwan. In cyberspace and online, China is using disinformation to interfere in Taiwan's elections by promoting polarized viewpoints and exploiting ruptures within our society. This is often executed by spreading short videos with unverified information online. Aside from domestic issues, there have also been alarming narratives that seek to damage the reputation of other countries, recently targeting the US, Japan, Europe, India, and the Philippines. These actions attempt to create distrust between Taiwan and its global partners. In the international realm, Taiwan has long been barred from international organizations because of China's acts of obstruction. Because of China's actions, Taiwanese have often found ourselves isolated with limited channels for global interactions. This affects Taiwan's ability to contribute to the wider good of the world, especially in areas such as healthcare, technology, or humanitarian assistance. Finally, last but definitely not the least, Taiwan's democracy is not perfect, since internally we continue to face problems related to corruption on the local level and other shortcomings. This is especially serious in non-urban areas. Powerful local political families continue to maintain a tight grip on Taiwan's local politics through voter bribery and voter intimidation. This also creates a risk for China's external interference. With these challenges in mind, what can be done by other countries to help support Taiwan? The people of Taiwan wish to maintain peace and stability. Taiwanese understand our responsibility towards safeguarding regional security, and we will continue to devote our efforts to preserve the cross-strait status quo. Taiwan needs help from the international community, especially from like-minded democracies around the world. Public statements of support are extremely helpful, as it shows the people of Taiwan that we are not alone. They also counter false narratives promoted by the Chinese state media. Statements from friendly countries are the most effective when they not only urge for peace, but also denounce the specific actions of the Chinese Communist Party. Economic trade and exchanges among the younger generations from like-minded countries also help to strengthen our resilience. Taiwan also stands in solidarity with people who are threatened by authoritarianism. Taiwan stands with Ukraine. Taiwan stands with Tibet. Taiwan stands with Hong Kong. Taiwan stands with the Uyghurs. Taiwan stands with countless others who are threatened by the CCP's authoritarianism. In an era alarmingly characterized by authoritarian expansion, Taiwan will continue to stand on the front lines of democracy to protect core values such as human rights, freedom of religion, and the freedom of speech. I also ask our friends from the international community to show your steadfast support for Taiwan. Thank you.
Thank you, Wenli.
Dr. Bernstein. The list is employee by Consensus Norway. She is a leader of Vietnamese Nationalist Party in Europe and a member of Executive Committee of Vietnam's Women Association of Kingdom of Norway. She is a member of Steering Committee of Alliance for Vietnam's Democracy. The list is organized and supported by several political conferences to promote freedom and human rights for Vietnam. A highly regarded political party with history of originating in the struggle for independence from French colonized rule, Vietnamese Nationalist Party goal as to counter an authoritarian Vietnamese Communist Party and restore Vietnam's democracy. In June 22, there was a fight presented by Vietnamese Nationalist Party. She represented Vietnamese Nationalist Party and the Alliance for Vietnam Democracy as a panelist at the Atlantic Council 360 Open Summit. Contest Reality Connect Future, which attract more than 80 world leaders. She's also on the panel of Vietnam Tribunal, he will court to deliberate the crime party. Elise,
thank you for the introduction and this listening. Thank you, panel. Ladies and gentlemen, Asia with its rich cultural heritage and diverse political landscape face both challenge and opportunity in its journey toward democratic progress. The most significant challenge to democracy in Asia lies in prevalence of the authoritarian and dictatorial region. Under these regions, people are denied a voice and the ability to develop and implement democratic principles is there. Another obstacles in the issue of human rights. Several countries in Asia, like Cambodia, Vietnam, Myanmar, Hong Kong, China, and North Korea, face oppression in terms of freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of press, and other personal freedom. Individuals are monitored, be arrested, or be fined for participating in social media. Understand these challenges require collective efforts from civil society, from international organizations, and from democratic nations to advocate for human rights, promote for transparency, and empower citizens to actively participate in shaping their societies. Talking about the opportunities, there's many Asia. Some Asian countries have experienced remarkable economic progress. This group can create a conducive environment for develop democratic institutions and protecting citizens' rights. Increased education and social awareness can also empower new generation of individuals who actively demonstrate their rights, and education can foster critical thinking and civic engagement. Asia, indeed, plays a crucial role in international community. Its interaction can significant impact promotion of democratic values and human rights. Moreover, the rapid advancement of information technology has revolutionized the way we access and disseminate the information. This accessibility fosters the solidarity among people and right awareness about their democratic rights. Together, can we navigate the complexity in our interconnected world? So let us continue to champion democracy, uphold human rights, work towards more just and equitable society. Regional and international links and cooperation can provide opportunity to share experience and to learn from effective democratic models. People in Asia have long been aware that democracy occurs in many stages and influenced by many historical, cultural, and political factors. During the colonial period, a sense of freedom and democratic rights could be awakened through independence movement and resistance against colonial injustice. Specific example in Vietnam is VNPDD, Vietnam Quốc is Vietnamese Communist, Vietnamese Nationalist Party, found on December 25th, 1927. It was to achieve independence for Vietnamese people and establish this politics and promote a free market economy. Ultimately bringing happiness to Vietnamese population. The climax occurred during General Uprising in February 10, 1930. This corporate act have garnered right and respect from around the world. At that time, the NPDD was led by a group of intellectual students with women from Vietnam College of Commerce. And their leader, remarkable Vietnam, was only 25 years old. Due to their unwavering commitment to a free and democratic Vietnam, VNPD, Vietnam Quốc opposed all forms of dictatorial rule, particularly the communist totalitarian dictatorship. Even today, as Vietnam remains under control of Vietnamese communists, VNPD continues its fight for free and democratic nation. Overseas, Vietnam Quốc was established based everywhere Vietnamese people have settled, with a significant presence in the United States. Domestically, VNPD operates covertly to avoid manipulation by the Chinese communists. The NPDD advocates for non-violent approach and something that's called the peaceful aggression, with in line with the global progressive trends. The NPDD is calling on democratic countries around the world to support so it can soon achieve freedom and democracy. Thank you for listening. Thank you. Thank you for the list.
Next, we have Lina Rikila Taman. She is Director for Asia and the Pacific region and oversees country program in Myanmar, Nepal, Bhutan between 2004 to 2013. She managed international IDEA program and supporting consensus building process in Nepal. Prior to her time in Nepal, Taman worked at the South Asia program, including Burma, Myanmar, at the International IDEA. Lina is former Secretary General of Finland's Advisory Board for Relations with Developing Countries. She is a member of former chairs of the Network Institutes for Global Democracy. She also a former board member of Asia Europe Foundation and has been teaching at the University of Tampere. She has worked in India, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and Vietnam, and Burma, Myanmar, and published about democracy at global level, on the women political participation, and on inclusive democratic process. Lina, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Destiny. This is for no? Okay. Thank you, Destiny, and thank you to Vietnam Democratic Alliance for organizing this and East Asia Institute for hosting this panel. I was requested to say something about the state of democracy all of Asia and the Pacific. Number one difficulty obviously being the huge diversity of this vast region, home to some of the world's most thriving democracies and the most closed autocracies. But everyone is having challenges. Living in the era of geopolitical rivalries, tensions and security concerns are rising, also here in the Korean Peninsula. Climate change is going to change the way we live, work, survive, or organize elections for that matter. AI, digitalization, technology is providing these immense opportunities and challenges for democracies. I can speak any of these, but I thought I would use my remaining 6.5 minutes for just to mention three challenges and opportunities specific to this region. Number one being the state of emergency during the COVID era and some of the recent elections have really revealed the role of military forces and armed forces still play in Asian politics. Of course, most evident in countries like Myanmar, Pakistan, and Thailand, in which where the influence and control of political processes is strong. But I would claim that some of these shadows of way of doing politics, the military culture, is also felt in many countries with authoritarian past, like the Philippines or Indonesia and Fiji. And this also the old way of doing politics at times takes the forms of dynasty politics, patronage, leaving very little space for alternative actors to emerge. And second one is related to this, the severely curtailed space for opposition and for the democracy activists. We saw that in the recent elections in Pakistan and Bangladesh. Already earlier witnessed we heard in Cambodia, in Hong Kong, and only a few days ago, Election Commission of Thailand prepared the case of dissolving the Move Forward Party, the constitutional force. Thailand's Ruling Party won the last, or became the biggest party after they won the elections of 2023 and is now currently the biggest opposition party. And same is taking place in more subtle ways and degrees elsewhere in the region. And the third challenge is the persistent absence of historically excluded groups from democratic politics and policymaking, of Dalits, of religious minorities, indigenous peoples, youth, women. And when it comes to women's political representation, as per the latest data from the IPU, in the Pacific, there are only 7% of women in parliaments. Whereas Australia and New Zealand countries are at the 45%. It is great, but still not 50% after all these decades of advances and efforts. And recent elections in Bhutan and Tuvalu saw a dramatic decline of women getting elected. Whereas India introduced the gender quotas at federal level, although those will be implemented only at the later stage. But there are few shoots of hope as well. Public participation makes the brightest hope for the future of democracy in the region. The vote turnout are generally quite high in the region, and accountable repressive governments are met with protests and resistance has been heard. South Korea itself witnessed its kind of like movement. In Sri Lanka, the Paragalaya protest movement led to departure of President Wilson. And particularly young people are coming up with new clever ways and strategies for protesting. And people are protesting also in the face of brutal force and violence, as PT witnessing from Myanmar to Iran. And the price paid is often very high, as we heard many even school people for their lives of defending democracy from inside and outside of their countries. And at times the change is painstakingly slow, but it is possible. Second opportunity, as I see, are what we call the cultivating institutions or checks and balances, particularly judiciary, anti-corruption commissions, election commissions, which at times have been able to step in to correct government decisions or policies. In India, as a Supreme Court decision, the opposition leader was released and is now able to run in the next elections. In Malaysia, the Anti-Corruption Commission played a critical role in the democratization of the country. And there are similar examples from around the region. And democracy showing that democracy can deliver social justice when these institutions are working. And any erosion of this institution is particularly worrying. And lastly, my final point, the elections are still the way to bring about change and allow democracies to correct themselves. We saw this in the Myanmar elections of 2015 and 2020, in Thailand, 2023, Malaysian elections in 2018, and elsewhere. Even in Pakistan, the party of Imran Khan won the biggest number of seats, even if the candidates had to be very forced run as independents. But obviously, there needs to be some minimum conditions for credible elections to take place, and so that the election results are actually respected. And hence, the recommendation is the all more reason to protect the people integrity of elections. And to pay attention when we see any slight or smaller declines on when it comes to different measures of looking at the elections. And take a note when the civil society, human rights organizations are bringing bring the alarms about such designs and do so before it's too late. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Lina.
Next, we have Dr. Silito Aligos, Council of Asian Liberals and Democrats. Dr. Silito Aligos is Executive Director of Council of Asian Liberal and Democrats, a regional network of liberal and democratic political parties and individuals in Asia. In April 2023, the People's Republic of China is announced by its Taiwan Affairs Office, imposed sanction on CALD for allegedly promoting Taiwan independence under guise of academic and research exchange. The sanction bar CALD officials from entering PRC from Hong Kong and Macau. They also prevent relevant organizations and individuals in mainland China and its administrative region from cooperating with CALD. Apart from Lito's work in CALD, he also served as lecturer in the Diplomacy and International Affairs Department of De La Salle's College of San Benito in Manila. He also taught political science, social science, and economics courses in several universities in the Philippines. He's obtained his bachelor and master's degree in University of the Philippines, where he also finished the coursework for PhD in political science. He also completed a certificate course on international relations research at the Graduate Institute of International and Development Studies in Geneva, Switzerland. Lito, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you so much, Destiny. I think the good thing about being the last speaker is that everything we wanted to say were already said. So I just want to start by thanking the Global Democracy Coalition, particularly the Alliance for Vietnam Democracy, for inviting me to this particular event. It's really a great honor to be part of this opening panel with a distinguished lineup of speakers. Please allow me to begin by introducing the organization which I represent, the Council of Asian Liberals and Democrats. As what Destiny said, it's a network of liberal and democratic parties in Asia. We were founded in 1993 with the support of then Thai Prime Minister Chuan Pan, then Deputy Foreign Minister Surin Pitsuwan, who later became ASEAN Secretary General. And also, it may be of interest to the South Koreans who are joining us today. Kim Dae-jung was also one of the founders of CAL. So we currently have 10 member parties in Southeast, East, and Central Asia. And at the moment, only 2 are in government. Soon it will be 1. We have Taiwan and Indonesia, but as a result of the recent elections in Indonesia, there will be a government change by October. So the rest of our member parties are in opposition, which I think tells us to a certain extent the state of democracy in the region. If democratic parties can win elections, that's an indicator of the challenges to democracy in this part of the world. So I have been asked today to share my thoughts on what I consider to be key challenges, and it's good that my fellow panelists mentioned most of them. So I'll just go through them very quickly. I just want to emphasize that, of course, China remains to be a great threat in the region. So that's why the Taiwan Straits and even the South China Sea disputes are considered to be two of the world's most dangerous flashpoints, which could spark a geopolitical confrontation between the superpowers. But I also have to say that one of the key challenges facing democracies in the region is that even countries with democratically elected leaders, these leaders eventually use their electoral mandate to degrade democratic institutions. This is what's called as this is what is called as a slow motion democratic breakdown, or by Filipino Nobel laureate Maria Ressa as democracy's death by 1,000 cuts. So I think this is quite dangerous because there is still this semblance of democracy, but in reality, institutions and processes of democracy are being eroded. The second challenge that I want to emphasize is the real or perceived failure of democracy to improve the lives of people. In the research published by Cambridge University analyzing the political sentiment of more than 4 million people from 154 countries from 1995 to 2020, it was pointed out that the global dissatisfaction with democracy reached record high. During this 25-year period, a number of individuals dissatisfied with democratic politics rose to about 1/2. Recent research by Pew Research Center also showed that for many, democracy is not delivered. People like democracy, but their commitment to democracy is not very strong. Political and social divisions are amplifying the challenges to contemporary democracies, and people want a stronger voice in politics and policy making. The third challenge that I want to emphasize, and this is also tackled by Lina in her presentation, is the weakness of our democratic institutions and processes to a certain extent can be tied to the role of money in politics. So the military, which Lina also emphasized, they intervene in politics in many parts of this particular particular region. Political dynasties or political families are widespread in countries like the Philippines, Indonesia, and Cambodia, of course, right? And of course, corruption is still rampant, both in the public and private sector in countries like South Korea and Malaysia. So it is because the military, political, and business elites have economic interests to protect, and they look at politics as a means to protect those interests. So after looking into these challenges, what are the opportunities for Democrats? So I want to emphasize two. First, while authoritarian and democratically elected turned authoritarian leaders in this part of the world are disregarding institutions of horizontal accountability. Lina emphasized that in a way they are countervailing institutions, but in other parts of the region, these countervailing institutions are also being challenged. So when countervailing institutions are politicized, so it cannot exact the horizontal accountability that should be demanded from our leaders. So I have to say that the strength of civil society, particularly by the young people in this part of the world, has been quite effective in enforcing what scholars call as diagonal accountability. So we can see that, for example, in the sunflower movement in Taiwan, the candlelight protests, which Nina also mentioned, and even to a certain extent, the civil disobedience movement in Myanmar. So regionally, I think the Milk Alliance, which is a loosely organized online political and social movement, is also a promising demonstration of the power and cross-cultural regional solidarity among democracy activists. Second, while dissatisfaction with democracy is at an all-time high globally, it must be noted that the latest Global Democracy Perception Index 2023, published by the TANA and the Alliance for Democracies, shows that Asia is backing the global trend. Despite the 17th consecutive year of decline in global freedom, the vast majority of people worldwide consistently say that democracy is important to have in their country. So that's 84%. And this has been the case in the past 5 years. So globally, democracy is still a preferred system of governance for at least 80% of the world's population. And interestingly, while about half those surveyed, 57%, think that their country is democratic, the top 3 countries which gathered the most democratic ranking from their citizens are all located in Asia. India, 78%, Taiwan, 77%, and South Korea, 74%. Finally, among the regions of the world, the feeling that there is not enough democracy or that democracy is not functioning too well is lowest in Asia. So only 30% feel that way compared to Latin America, which is 55%, and Europe, 42%. So after discussing these challenges and opportunities for democracies in Asia, what can we say then about the prospects for democracy in this part of the world? I don't think there is an easy answer to that question, as it would certainly depend on how we navigate the challenges and embrace the opportunities as democracy supporters and actors. What I can say with certainty is this: given the geographic size, geopolitical importance, and economic clout of Asia, we are hosting 2 of the world's biggest democracies, India and Indonesia. We are outpacing other regions of the world in terms of economic development. So I think Asia will play a role on the prospects of democracy. Whether democracy will flourish or flounder in this part of the world will have implications for the future of democracy at the global level. So thank you so much for your attention.
Now we have some questions. Since you still hold the microphone, do you want to go first, Anthony?
Oh.
There have been a number of democratic innovations found in Asia, include deliberate polling, participatory budgeting, e-governance, citizen jury, and different strategy to channel this empowerment. How has the innovation affected democracy in Asia?
I think the innovation that I want to emphasize in relation to supporters of democracy would be the way we communicate with each other. As seen, for example, in the experience of the Milk Alliance, they have been quite creative in terms of showing their support and also avoiding persecution from their respective governments. They use the latest technology. They exercise digital security. They make their movement leaderless in order to avoid arrest. So I think these are the things that the rest of the world can learn from when it comes to political innovations in Asia.
Did anyone else want to comment?
I would like to say something. Yeah, it is very important that the communication is getting stronger. Like if the military alliance will support certain countries and those youth in that certain countries doing well with that, I think that's going to give a huge impact, especially us in Cambodia. I'm thinking of I'm thinking on how to handle my hand to the other multi-client influencers. Like we also have the influencer in Cambodia, like I told you, Dr. Gatlai. He is a very uh, huge influencer in Cambodia, but he's not a youth. He's a little older. And now we have a lot of youth, like you can see over there, three of them have been under 30s. And if we join hand and supporting each other in a more certain way, like right now you can see in Taiwan, in Hong Kong, in Myanmar. So they are fighting for themselves. So why if we are going to stand together and fight for them too? And then if they be able to get away from the dictatorship, and then they will help us to fight with the dictator in Vietnam and in Cambodia too. So I think it is the right time for us to stand together and helping them directly, not indirectly anymore. So it will be a huge impact. Thank you.
Very good point. Leah, would you?
So just a point about the I think it's on. Oh. Okay. Thanks. Yeah, no, I really agree about the strategic cleverness of these ongoing movements, particularly the online in the online space. But maybe not just to mention about the regarding the citizen assemblies, which is most of them used in Europe and outside of Asia Pacific region, and we're going currently in the national idea the paper about the use of citizen assemblies in discussing and deliberating about the climate change. But while doing this study, it was discovered as well that maybe it's not an innovation as such, but it is that there are these old ways, traditional practices of building consensus around the region, from Trans-Saharas to India to Pacific ways of building consensus. You may not call them innovations, but they are not following what would you call sort of Westminster parliamentary processes of representation and all that. But they are new old ways of building democratic consensus.
Thank you, Lena. My question number 2. What do you think about the role of technology in democracy in Asia? Just the least one. Do you go for the number 2? Anybody know?
So right now, when we say about the dictatorship is going to end, like we can see that the dictatorship all around the world is getting smaller and smaller. But in the term, like right now we have AI, we have ChatGPT, and we have iPhone 15 is not using still anymore, using titanium. And the dictator also improving themselves a lot. So right now, looking back in Cambodia, they are using the high technology to destroy the people who advocate for democracy, for human rights and freedom. And I myself right now I don't really know what to do because even though the free media, the Voice of America in Khmer, in Vietnam, and in other languages too, also the Radio Free Asia has in other languages too, and they are broadcasting wisely. But now the regimes, the dictator regime, have using the highest technology to block us from viewers inside Cambodia, and then they using the people who is working on the technology to earn money to make sure that our voice not being heard by the Democrats. So there is another challenge is that we should do research on that and what is the good challenge that we have for using technology. So I think um, working together and giving the idea to each other to fighting against the dictator is the good point. So we need more Democrats to learn more high technology and share that strength to each other in order to get the good use or the best of technology to fighting with the dictator. Thank you.
Does anyone have other comments?
Yeah, I just want to add to that. So I fully agree that technology can be a double-edged sword. We can use it as democracy supporters and activists, but at the same time, the authoritarians are also using technology to suppress dissent. And I think in this part of the world, part of the reason for that is because China is actively supporting now in recent years many authoritarian governments in this region. And part of the support is not only in terms of military, economic, but also in terms of exporting technology that can be used to limit the political space. It's interesting that I read a couple of days ago that the European Union has passed a new law on artificial intelligence. So it would be interesting to know what would be the impact of AI to democracy in Asia. We have already saw a glimpse of that, and not in a good way, at least in the recent elections that we had in this region. But I also believe on the promise of AI in terms of encouraging greater citizen participation. So maybe that's something that can be explored in the future.
No, I really agree with both the previous speakers. Maybe just to add on the regulation of AI. And we don't have an Asian Union at state that would regulate the regulations that the European Union is now introducing. It's I think we are only to see the full effect on Europe in years to come or in the months to come. But what would be needed to have some of the Asian regional organizations or countries to introduce new regulations, this cooperation, coordination also with the big companies, the technology, the private sector. I guess the big question is this balance between the freedom of expression and the need to manage disinformation, information operations, and all that. And I guess the whole world, we are all grappling with that, the right balance. This is the how technology will develop, how it will be regulated in a democratic way and manner is probably one of the key questions for how democracy in this part of the world and globally is to develop.
At this point, I would like to open up to questions from audience. We have some online and some
in the room? Is anybody want to go first?
There's one question online, based on Dr. Solito's assessment of the global challenges of democracy versus autocracy. What is the first priority that we need to focus on collectively to strengthen the foundation of democracy in Asia? And two, what can the US and our diaspora in the US do to support you and your mission?
But I think the next panel will be dealing with strategies and narratives of democracy. So they may be able to provide us with more specific answers to that. But for me, I think one of the priorities that we should do as democracy activists would be to continue promoting the democracy narrative. I think we're losing the narrative in the past years, and there are a number of reasons for that. No? In Asia, the authoritarian model of China is gaining traction. Even in countries which consider themselves as democracies, like I can listen, for example, to Indonesian and Filipino officials saying that the alternative being provided by China is much more effective in terms of generating economic growth, promoting stability, and also, I mean, because of the recent COVID-19 pandemic, in addressing the health crisis. So we have to counter that narrative. We have to tell the people that democracy works. So I think it's something that people like us, people in the democracy movement, should continue doing and even amplify further our efforts in the coming years.
Thank you, Dr. Lincoln. Is there any more questions?
I have a question. So we've been very blessed with free and fair elections in many Asian countries. However, as you're saying that there's erosion of democratic values, because once they are elected, there's not as much check and balance mechanism. So that's part of the narrative of democratic values, is that they do have a check and balance, not just international check and balance, but they do have internal check and balance. And how can we help them with that narrative? Well, estimates say that well, number one is that if you have a popular and democratically elected populace who is wishing to make changes, of course, it's very hard to prevent that. But it can be made more difficult by designing what we call designing for resistance. Making changes or contribution, for example, very difficult. Making sure that certain the framework for presentation concerning human rights is not that easy to amend. You can buy time with these kind of design options. So, for example, that the constitution change would be at least maybe 2 to 10 years, or the majority is so high that that's the single majority will not be able to carry out the fundamental changes in a short period of time. The possibilities of how to appoint judges, election commissioners, making sure that those institutions remain independent, and they have the mandates, resources, and to carry out the work. But it's not easy if there is a popular populist leader with no ability determined to make changes. Often it is the civil society and activists and the streets as the last resort, because as mentioned, these changes and really what is so challenging about it is that these changes take place often very slowly, so that you don't quite get them when they happen. And hence, I think we need to pay much more attention to these slight changes and different types of democracy analyses. So, the national idea of democracy. We often make headlines when something big backsliding has happened or collapse has happened, but we should really make the headlines when we see smaller changes and started to take place, so that there is some time to interview.
Thank you, Mayor. Is there any more questions? Don't. Seeing we don't have any more question here. We are going to have a small group discussion so everybody can voice their idea.
Welcome to the session on narratives and strategy for democracy in Asia. I'm Lin Win, and I will be moderating. The session will start with remarks from each of the panelists, followed with a Q&A and a breakout session into groups, and ending with a closing remark. Our distinguished panelists are Dr. Song-Hee Kim, Senior Researcher, East Asia Institute, Dr. James Gomez, Regional Director, Asia Center, Major General Anil Verma, retired, Head, Association for Democratic Reforms from India, Ian Walker, Executive Director, New Democracy Foundation, and Mu Sutra, Vice President, Khmer Movement for Democracy. Our first panelist is Ian Walker. Ian is Executive Director for the New Democracy Foundation, NDF, in Australia, a role he has held since 2011. Ian has led over 20 trial projects at local government and state government level, including projects for state premiers on both sides of politics. The topics have ranged from long-term budgeting for the $4 billion City of Melbourne financial plan to the potential for a high-level nuclear waste storage facility in South Australia. In the water industry, NDF designed the 2017 Citizens Jury process for Yarra Valley Water. Please welcome in Ian.
Go ahead, Ian. We have the floor. We'd like to hear from you.
Wonderful. So I can see three of you in the room. Good morning in Korea. I'm Ian Walker from the New Democracy Foundation in Australia. In about 5 minutes, all I really want to share is what's the problem we seek to solve, what's an answer we think is worth considering, and how you could take a first step doing that. So in New Democracy, we look at the problem we want to solve largely in Australia, but it applies to many democracies, is that we've built a system that is hyper-responsive to public opinion. And what you really want is a system that is more responsive to public judgment. What's the difference? Public opinion is what you think in the next 5 seconds. Public judgment is what you think when you've had a chance to think. The simplest analogy we like to share is that for those countries that have the criminal jury system, if someone is arrested for a serious crime, we pick a small pool of people picked at random. We ask them to consider diverse and contested information. We give them quite a lot of time to reflect and weigh that up. We give them a clear task, and there's a pre-agreed level of authority. Now, what's the problem we're really solving? It's not just one about public opinion impairing people in elected office, constraining them, trying to get them, gives them incentives to say popular things. The other problems we really want to look at are, I think a lot of people see the political system as very distant to them. Politicians are other strange people over there. They don't see people like themselves in the decisions. And thirdly, when you're in a public opinion environment, misinformation is really easy to do. If people aren't thinking, it's very easy to slide something past them and get questionable claims passed. So the problem I want to look at is public opinion, that loss of connection with parliaments, and this idea of misinformation and how to counter it. So this solution, as I just teased, is really built around this idea of the jury system and applying it to public principles. And as I stepped through in the criminal analogy, it really just hangs on 5 principles. These hopefully will be the 5 most obvious things you ever hear, but they're not often done. When we look at a process that should engage citizens, I want you to think about 5 things. Are we speaking to a representative group of people? You know, a lot of things in society come down to the most interested, the enraged, and the articulate, rather than actually saying, is this really representing people from all walks of life, rich and poor, old and young, different backgrounds? Secondly, are people actually considering the evidence on all sides of the argument? You know, there's a real temptation to only read it and consider evidence that you agree with. The third principle is, if you want to take a really mixed group of people, very different educational levels and affinity for a topic, and you want them to consider this information, you need a lot of time. And commonly these projects run for 40 or 50 hours spread across 3 months. So picture meeting on a Saturday, coming together all day, working in small groups of 5 and 6, being rotated around, asking new questions, then coming back in 3 weeks. Those questions have been answered, speakers you've requested have come in, and you repeat the exercise and work towards finding common ground as a group. And this is the 4th principle. Simply ask an open question. Our society has some tough challenges to resolve. In Australia, one of them is simply, you know, how do you fund healthcare? What if you ask an open question? How can we pay for the healthcare system we want and put it in front of a group like this? And the last principle is super straightforward. It's about pre-agreeing authority, saying that government will respond to you in detail in 60 days, that a relevant minister will meet with you within 30 days after that, because you're going to get a representative group of people to invest the time and think if they know they're going to be listened to. Now, I know every time I do a conversation like this, I'm aware it's a slightly new and strange idea for people, and it's being done in a lot of countries around the world. The most prominent example the most prominent examples have been in Ireland, where they have taken very tough constitutional issues and actually issues that are too hard for politics in most of our countries. They've exposed it to a jury of 100 people and enabled the government to say, we're going to listen to the starting point provided by these citizens. Now, this is a 5-minute introduction. It's intended to prompt you to think, I want to know more, and I hope there's questions following the other speakers as well. But the idea is a simple one. We create formats and institutions in our court system to give citizens a real role. In our democracies now, citizens feel their role doesn't matter. The vote is a tiny, tiny thing. You get 1/20 millionth of a say. So how much thought am I going to put into it? Let's change that citizen role in a way that's really complementary and helps elected leaders to lead. And if this is an interesting idea, there's absolutely a path where we meet with new parliaments, new elected representatives, to run them a workshop, show them how it works, provide an outline and advice for showing how it could look in their context. And they're commonly the first 2 steps before a project. And a project is the only real way to start, because you've got to see it and touch it to decide if the public are going to trust it. So I think I've hit my 5-minute brief, David. I will hand back to you.
Thanks, Ian. Thank you for the innovation. We had the honor of introducing Major General Neil Verma. In 1975, he joined the Indian Army and retired after 37 years of distinguished service. He is the head of the ADR since
since December 2013 and oversees all the administrative and operational activities of the Pan-Indian organization. He frequently writes for English and Hindi newspapers, magazines, and issues related to electoral and political reforms. He has represented APR in several national and international events pertaining to democracy, electoral, and political reforms. From time to time, he is also invited to interact with foreign delegates on issues of governance, advocacy, transparency, and accountability in electoral politics. Citizen engagement through RTI on the 25th of January 2020, National Voters Day, on behalf of the APR, Major General Garland received the National CSO Award from the hands of the President of India. He has a Master of Science in Defense Studies and a Master of Arts in Political Science. You have the floor, Major General. Can you unmute?
Good morning, everyone. Am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So thank you for the introduction, and I'm delighted to be here to share our views. Since the time limit is there for 5 to 6 minutes, I'll quickly try to bring out some of the points and what we are doing. I am the head of Association for Democratic Reforms, and we are running our 25th year now, and we work basically on electoral and political reforms in India. As you're all aware, at the heart of today's geopolitical competition is a contest over what type of governance model best meets the needs and enables the potential of citizens. Worldwide, civil society organizations, human rights activists, and democracy enthusiasts have expressed concerns about a global democratic recession occurring alongside a resurgence of global authoritarianism. While the situation can vary across countries, there have been instances of democratic backsliding in certain Asian nations also. Now, Asia, as we all know, is a continent marked by rich histories, cultural tapestries, and a multitude of political landscapes. And the narratives that shape democratic ideals in Asia are as varied as the nations themselves, reflecting unique historical context, social cultural nuances, and ongoing struggles for political inclusion. Let's just delve quickly into some of the key narratives that characterize the pursuit of democracy in this continent. First is the historical struggle for independence. Many of the Asian countries have experienced colonial rule, and consequently their narratives of democracy are deeply intertwined with the struggle for independence. Second is the cultural pluralism and diversity. Asia is a mosaic of diverse cultures, languages, traditions, and the narrative of democracy revolves around the recognition and celebration of this diversity. Embracing pluralism is both a political and a cultural imperative that fosters the idea of unity in diversity. Now, some of the challenges of authoritarianism and democratic backsliding, the latest PEW Research Center report, which was released on 28th February this year, it surveyed 30,861 people in 24 countries between February and May 2023. And the highlights are interesting, the findings. That across the 24 nation poll, a median of 77% expressed support for representative democracy. A median of 70% say it would be a good way to run the country by direct democracy. 2/3 of the Indians and about half of the Indonesians endorse this form of autocracy. Military rule. Of the 5 systems of government that respondents were asked about, military rule is the least popular. Now, as far as the satisfaction with democracy and the rating for political leaders and parties, in 14 of the 24 countries, satisfaction with democracy has decreased significantly since the last time this question was asked. Across the 24 countries, median of only 45% rate the leaders of their country positively. Now, let's come to what is our strategy and what are we doing about it. I'll quickly cover the strategies adopted by ADR in India. You see, crafting narratives is not enough. Strategies are essential to ensure that democratic ideals are not only embraced, but are also translated into effective governance. And one of the key strategies is the promotion of civic education. The other very important aspect is transparency and accountability, which are the cornerstones of a robust democracy. Inclusion of marginalized voices is crucial for the success of democracy in Asia. Women, ethnic minorities, differently able, tribal groups, and other marginalized groups must be actively involved in the decision-making process. The youth, and especially the first-time voters in a country like ours, where we have a huge number of voters, you are aware of our population, it is very crucial that the youth also participate in great numbers. And in the digital age, leveraging technology is another very essential strategy. So social media platforms, for instance, can be powerful tools for citizen engagement and the dissemination of information. It is crucial to address the challenges posed by misinformation and ensure that the technology is harnessed for the greater good of democracy. We are all talking about AI and the deep fakes, etc. We have to be very careful with the type of number of elections which are going on all over the world. So ADR has an Android-based application by the name of My Neta in Hindi, which means my leader. It is an open access, and it is India's only such website which has a database of over 200,000 candidates and political funding data of several hundred political parties which exist in India. We get several million hits on our website, and we regularly receive requests from voters, research scholars, activists, transparency campaigners, journalists, etc., who visit our website to refer for election-related information. Additionally, the other initiatives undertaken by ADR is in the last couple of decades is election watch and candidate analysis. Like, we put out the complete background details of all candidates who contest elections on our website. Secondly, transparency in political funding. We analyze the contribution and donation reports and the audit reports submitted by the political parties to the Election Commission of India and put it out in the public domain for the people to know who has donated how much to whom. The third aspect is the voter education. Now, this is a grassroots level program which is carried out all over the country by our partners. We have partners in our state. As you're aware, India is a huge country. It's like a subcontinent. And they do the grassroots voter awareness campaigns by motivating people to come out and vote for good people and not to vote for people with criminal backgrounds. Advocacy for electoral reforms. We interact with political parties, with the government, and give suggestions for electoral reform. And the most important one is, of course, the legal interventions. We file a number of public interest litigations. The latest one, which is very popular in the last couple of weeks, is the electoral bonds case, which the ADR won. The Supreme Court gave a judgment in the favor of ADR, wherein the 16,850 crore rupees worth of electoral bonds, where the donor's identity was not known. That was the basic issue why we filed this PIL. The Supreme Court said it is important. The voters have a right to know. And as per our constitution, this whole scheme was declared illegal and scrapped. So by tomorrow evening, the Election Commission of India is supposed to put on their website the entire list of people who donated and which political parties received these funds. So this is just one of the examples I've given you. Then is capacity building and training, research and publications. We do a lot of that. and of course, collaboration with like-minded institutions. So, in conclusion, the narratives and strategies are intertwined elements that can shape the destiny of democracy in Asia. And by fostering inclusive narratives and implementing effective strategies, we can build a resilient democratic institutions that reflect the aspiration of diverse populations. And let us work together to ensure that the flame of democracy, not only in Asia, but the entire world, burns brightly, illuminating the path towards the future of justice, equality, and prosperity for all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You have a lot of claps here. Our next speaker is Dr. Son-Hee Kim. She is a senior researcher at East Asia Institute. We have a beautiful forum here on her behalf. Her research focuses on the subject of authoritarian legal regimes, judicial politics, democratization, and democratic backsliding. Dr. Kim received PhD from the University of Washington and was a visiting fellow to the Higher School of Economics in Moscow, Russia, and a postdoctorate researcher in the Harvard Institute at Columbia University. Prior to joining EAI, Dr. Kim taught in the Department of Government at Williams and Mary. Please give the floor to Dr. Kim. Thank you for the introduction. I'm from EAI, second floor. I'm very glad to be here, and I thank GDC to give me a great opportunity to share the ideas, especially about the challenges and questions of developing democracy in the Pacific region. I think Korea has a very special and unique position in shaping the narratives for promoting democracy because of this history shared by many other nations in this region that have experienced colonialism and are still going the struggle for democracy and sometimes military rule in military dictatorships. And Korea is a good governance model, I guess, because especially because so Korea has been successful in developing its own so when these units go to Cold War, so you that we part pretending that the narrative has said to review some of the understanding of the Korean democratic movement in this session. How we can work to make that and also to that of very so I trained in Korea have corporate experience in the United but the very early years we had this was not really coming into the results because we have experience and that not to the military dictatorship of the world. We only have no president you recall the 1980s very short period of time reconciliation. So it took only about less than 40 years or 50 years to have this level of democracy in democratic institutions. Given that experience, I think strategies in right to that for that maybe a very more learning to shape the attention with community. But here the narrative and the strategy that I think it was not really an easy steps for Koreans or the Korean institutions. And also another structural and outside influence was also very important. And definitely when it comes to the democracy in 1990s, there were, I think, three main factors that made that possible, which to the consolidation. And one for the society movement and our youth movements that were response. Very strong ones and very relative even against dictatorship. And also, and that was a very big, but in addition to that, the external environment was changing to end up with the race. And the waves was going into different direction. And the military dictatorship that was getting hold of the power in Korea couldn't really sustain their regime the way that it was now that the Cold War was ending, and the narrative that the dictatorship is possible as long as it is going against the communism was gaining less and less momentum. So that was that exhaustive structure. But and I think the third factor that made the democratization and the democratic consolidation possible was the economic development in Korea. So the level that economic development and the structure that the military dictatorship could really negotiate with the interested parties, invested interest in Korea, could make the environment for the military dictatorship to step down actually and have the negotiating process with civil society to make the democratization successful. So this 20 to 30 years of democratization could actually go into the consolidation of democratic institutions. And we were in a position to help out and give the democracy aid to other nations. And Korean government and also Korean civil society have been putting into different endeavors, especially to help out economic and also welfare of other nations. That can be the cornerstone of the democratization of these nations. What Korea did thus far when it comes to democracy aid was could actually divide it into three different sectors. The first is the electoral process, another is to help out the governance capacity improvement, and also the emphasis on helping out other countries of society. But the main focus of Korea's ODA has been put towards the institutional innovation and public administration training for other countries. But last focus, the limited resources were directed towards indirect civil reform, civil society. I think this is partly due to the weakness of the civil society movement in Korea, not because civil society has been pressured by the government or anything, but the strong civil society, a strong youth movement during the democratic changing era has been shifted towards particular interests in diverse entities. So I think some of the strategies and some of the plans that we, South Korean government and South Korea want to direct more in the future is, I guess, to tie into these different endeavors and bring into specialized issue-based endeavors to help out other democratic nations into a coherent democracy narrative to actually state that these different endeavors and different focuses are for consolidation or the democratization of different communities in the region. And also, lastly, I think one of the strategies that we can retrieve from the experience is that if we could create some kind of like global but also regional coalition that tie into and that play different actors into a coherent endeavor, then it would be actually very beneficial. And I believe that the Korean government is actually moving towards that side, carrying their mission and becoming the people of the country. Okay, more. So thank you. Thank you so much for being us. And thank you for sharing the successful direction of South Korea and its leadership in the democratic narrative leadership, and hopefully that with your care and the welfare of other nations in their electoral process and their advancement of our civil society. And so we certainly will look forward to your leadership. Our next panelist is Moon Chua. She is an outspoken and respected Cambodian politician who has dedicated her life to fighting for women's rights and democracy in Southeast Asia. As the daughter of disappeared Sino Khmer parents, Chua spent most of her young adult life in exile in the United States. When she returned to Cambodia in 1991, she strove to rebuild her country, first by founding Khmer, an NGO for women's empowerment, and then joining the Fun Seat Party. She eventually won a seat in Parliament, where she served as the first minister for women's and veteran affairs between 1998 and 2004. As the government grew increasingly corrupt over Prime Minister Hussein Chua, Chua stepped down and became vice president of the Cambodian National Rescue Party, Cambodia's main electoral opposition party. Still dedicated to her work combating sex trafficking and promoting gender equality, she received a vital Voices of Leadership Award and was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize in 2005. So Chua is once again living in exile under Hussein's government of the UNRP and threatened as leader in 2017. Madam Minister, we have the floor. Okay, so when she's back, I didn't know that we lost her. When she comes back, we will have her give her talk. And so next, we'll have a question and answer. And if you have any questions, please let me know. But I do have some questions for our panelists here. What do you think of the role of civil society networks in the overall strategy for democracy in Asia? Do you want to take that question?
Sure. I think the answer is a very important one. I think one that has been neglected. But we can only understand that if we know what is the role of state of governments. For me, I think governments have been captured by particular majority religious and elites and families were very, very much corrupt. They don't the state for financial benefits. And then they use the bureaucracy in their cronies, not to govern, but to rule. So I think, for me, this concept of good governance is actually very fake. And we think that there's no benevolent effort in governance, but more in terms of trying to rule and control. So if you look at the democracy endeavors, right, by states, whether it's the Taiwan Foundation democracy, right now with the elections, with the DDP not having a majority in parliament, so you're going to have challenges in the management, and of course, disbursement of funds to join more policy foundation. So that's one. Bali Democracy Forum has been defunct for quite a few years, The institution is still there, linked to MOFA, there's no money, it's empty, right? It's forgotten. Don't get me started about Korea. KDF is there for many years, not properly funded, it's struggled. I like what you said about, the efforts to be a leading democratic voice. But when you actually deal with Korean OFA, KOICA, the embassy official, they kind of don't know what's going on. And then they're not the most endearing people to deal with when you talk about democracy. They do not have democracy literacy. So I find it kind of, neither here nor there. And then India, there may be some internal efforts and that's already challenging, but India doesn't go beyond funding some small Indian corners in libraries and universities, use scholarships, and putting in some money for India Day celebration. It's not, out there doing the democracy stuff. And Japan is always, either here or there. They have announced that they will do something about democracy, put some money aside for the and all that. Still unclear. There are some movements, but it's really unclear. So because the states are defunct, right, in that sense, it's part of democracy because they are captured by authoritarian elites, then there's no choice but for us to look at civil society as an option. So we need to kind of build coalitions in civil society, and then of course we got to have a big tent approach. And because resources are also short, so we need to have a civil society, and I include NGOs as part of the civil society community to kind of collaborate and move forward. So in short, yes, because the states are defunct, we will have to include civil society as an important movement.
That's the things creating government officials and program people should be democratically electable to a degree. The reason why I think I share your feeling, of course, that there are some definite limitations that Korean governments putting their resources and efforts that should have been felt not enough or not even maybe at sometimes appropriate to develop democracy. But I think the question of when it comes to support the civil society movements or strengthen civil society in a nation where the liberty is not guaranteed, the question from the border countries or question from the organizations that help these people is whether to help out at all, given this defunct government. Are we actually? So the question always comes down to by walking the fine line and give some kind of aid to promote the seeds and the elements of democracy in this region. Are we actually strengthening the democratic region?
Um, because we cannot really go out and say that we promote democracy in your first region. We can't, but what we do is to give support for better welfare, better education, better medical system, but in a way that in the long term it will give more liberty and more political and civil rights to different people, groups of people in your nation. By doing that, are we strengthening the autocratic regime? Are we giving legitimacy to the ruler of these militaristic governments, or the repression of these governments are imposing on? That's a perennial question I don't have an answer to. But what I'm posing right now here is that the strategies should be there, and action plan should be there. And when it comes to the action plans, they need to be smart, I think, and that smartness comes from being very careful not to jeopardize the roots of the civil society movement and its weakness.
Yes, and we always look towards South Korea as a model country that has developed democracy and has helped share this vision for the democracy movement and leading to that. I was wondering if the Major General would like to have a word with us. I believe you may want to unmute yourself.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, can you please repeat the question? Is it pertaining to my views on civil society organizations?
Yes, we were wondering the civil society and the strategy for democracy movement.
Well, I personally feel that the civil society organizations play a very important role in all democracies, because as we all know that whichever political party is in power and is the government, they have the privilege of making laws, and they can make laws because of the virtue of the fact that they have a majority in the parliament, and the laws are not necessarily always good for everybody. So we have to keep in mind the diversity, cultural and ethnic diversity, and the various people who are downtrodden and from the marginalized sections of the society. They have a different set of demands. And if the government uses laws to sort of deny those rights, that is one. The second thing is, other repressive means are there wherein protests are not permitted, or the funding of the civil society organizations is curbed or banned, and the media is harnessed, and as it is, most of the media, I don't know about other countries, but here it is controlled by the corporates, and then there is a set agenda which they follow. So paid news and all that is also there. So there are a number of issues in which the civil society brings out these problems in front of the entire population. And so even the human rights issues are there, environmental issues are there, civil society is working in so many fields. And there are a lot of areas where the government cannot reach, or they don't work in those areas adequately. So that is where the civil society plays a very important role by doing that last mile connectivity, I would say, with the people, let's say in the interiors or the tribals and various other people. So basically, I would say in all fields, be it health, education, employment, empowerment, civil society is doing a great job, and the governments at times, play a negative role in that. But of course, a lot of, I would say, non-governmental organizations are getting funds from the government to carry out certain schemes, which is also very good in different areas. I think that's all I would like to say. Thank you.
So this leads to my next question, and it will go for Ian. What do you think about the role of technology in the overall strategy for democracy in Asia? Can you hear us, Ian?
It's me.
Sorry, the sound is a little wavy. I thought that was the Major General. Can you repeat the question,
So the
please?
question is, what is the role of the technology for the overall strategy of democracy in Asia?
I think we've got to be careful to avoid simplistic issues. Technology, if you look at democracy, there's often two halves. There's, I want my government to talk about this issue, agenda setting, and there's, I think this is the answer, recommendations and policy making. I think technology can be a fantastic way of identifying what's important to people, and it's an absolutely terrible way of finding out what the answer is, because we want people to slow down and think. So we would argue against direct democracy, the same way that if I got arrested later tonight, and I'd put the same thing to my colleagues on Zoom, would you rather have a small sample of people given a lot of time to think, or an opinion poll of 10,000 people who decide, actually, I don't like the look of you, guilty? We need thinking formats. In those thinking formats, technology can be a fabulous thing, because when people say, for me to make a trusted decision, something really interesting has happened in Finland or Japan or Cambodia, I'd like to hear from the people there. Fantastic, we can connect them. But the idea of technology is, I want the law to be this, probably a very dangerous path. Back to you.
Yes, thank you. So now I'm going to open up to the audience for any questions. Do you have any questions from the audience? As we're waiting for any questions, over in the 20th century, we have over 50 years of really good models from Asia with democratic advancement in Korea, the Japan, Singapore. And then the later half of the 20th century, we have successful narratives that we can study. One of which I'm thinking of is the fall of the Berlin Wall, in which it was non-violent and there was a reunification of Germany. The other narrative is from North Ireland, embracing the democratic values. Its former leadership was not prosecuted, and its civil society was reintroduced democratic values. And I was wondering if you can carry the momentum to the 21st century, advancing democracy in issues. Could Dr. Kim make a...
You asked me that question. My prospect is a bit yes. So we called the 2024 it's the high stake year for democracy. In I think it was the year 2016 or 2015 that this rise of populist parties from Europe and elsewhere on the globe has begun to take its momentum. And also so-called democratic actually the Charlie Sox coined after that. It kind of signifies that even if it's only a democracy is being threatened by the forces that are undemocratic.
So even those states that have the established democratic institutions and the long history of democracy can have the elements of authoritarianism in it. One moment it could just slip into a undesirable regime. So what I call democracy, I think, is always a process and not a destination. So I think at this moment, we have we are facing a very clear risk. But and what we need to do is if we want to give prospect, what we need to do to make this make this risky moments an opportunity to turn things around, or to not be swept away by the external forces that could negatively impact democratic development, especially for things as the previous session discussed the importance of the knowledge that can shape differently the public opinion, or the that becomes the tool of the better tools of the dictatorship rather than democracy. Is something that we need to be really truly aware of and be prepared for if we want to make this democratic work.
Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, because we spoke a lot about civil society, I just wanted to maybe share with you my views about the latest developments in the civil society landscape in our part of the world. First of all, I think civil society are not poor things. They're not weak claims in the region, they don't need help, they don't need to be mollycoddled. There is a range of civil society. Yes, there are the nascent ones that need some support, youth, those with very limited resources and infrastructure. But then there are also strong ones that operate at the regional level with good branding. In fact, I would say several of the INGOs, like Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, Article 19, these are what I call sunset brands. They're no longer useful. Even certain governments that support them, let's say the US, Human Rights Watch, when the US government doesn't want to speak, it supports a lot of Human Rights Watch to speak. The value of that articulation and statement doesn't carry so much weight for because it's rejected by the market, right? Because it doesn't come from the region. So I think it's important to understand there's a fading of the old brands and the rise of the new brand, the regional brands, the strongest CSOs in the region. So I think we need to make those kinds of distinctions if we want to know how to form new coalitions in the region that support democracy. Right? I think it must be led by the stronger brands, CSOs from the region. They need funded. But that does not mean they need to go alone. International partnership is still very important, right? Building the grassroots CSOs and building ecosystems is very important. I think the configuration needs to shift. Otherwise, we can't speak to market. Yeah. So I think that would be my.
Okay, so I wanted to follow up with the carrot stick that you guys kind of alluded to. I believe that the opportunity comes because although we think that we give a lot of carrots, but they're stick, and we think that we're providing sticks, but we're not. I believe that stick comes from self-inflicted wounds by regimes that are isolating themselves in that the authoritarian do not really have a resilient economy, so they are looking toward the advancement of economics for many, many years, but now we see that what they're doing is not very resilient. Will that provide us, because they actually, like I said, it's a kind of self-inflicted wounds by becoming more authoritarian and more isolated. And how can that be an advancement for us or an opportunity for democratic values to grow?
So can I turn that into a question? Yeah, I actually I want to draw Ian. Hey Ian, I just wanted to. It did come up very clearly, but I wanted to know where's Australia at with democracy? I mean, I don't see Australia very active in democracy promoting in the region. It does a little bit of security, trade stuff, economics, right? But democracy not really. So sitting in Australia, can you give us an insight? What's the thinking? From
Well,
Australia.
I don't wear a government hat. I wear an independent NGO hat. I think if you look at what is public, what's everyone concerned about? It's the role of China. You have a government there that says, please, nobody interfere, while interfering in absolutely everything that it can. They're the main hacking groups. They're the main misinformation groups. They're active on formats, trying to create breaks in social cohesion by simply starting fights. So fortunately, they have an autocratic ruler, and I think that was where the question started, who we don't need to worry about foreign interference into China. They will blow themselves up independently. So I think you simply wait. I think governments around the region that are getting influenced by China will simply get tired of it. I always like that simple metric of people vote with their feet. For all the proposed success there, what do Chinese Communist Party officials do when they get some money? They buy a house in Australia and get a visa for their children. They don't believe in their own democratic model. They flee to countries like ours. So I think the toughest thing is there's a great gap between politics and democracy. And like many countries, we are led by politicians. So incremental changes in democracy will come. I was still smiling at the prior question when it was raised about the fall of the Berlin Wall and the break or the change in Northern Ireland. Both of those things happened by accident. And I think that's really worth dwelling in, especially for civil society groups. You can make a lot of plans, but both of those things happened totally by accident. And it was just about having an environment where people have the new ideas and test them. So I think as long as there are activities occurring on the ground, when big changes happen because autocrats make mistakes, then organically you'll get the right model in your country. I actually think it was the Major General commenting earlier, there's legacies of imperialism, etc. I guess we're former British subjects as well. We have that in common with our Indian colleagues. But you make your own path. Democracy is not something you can really impose. It's something which you see in other countries. You take the elements which work, you localize them, and hopefully you get that local democratic model. I don't think we're missing out by not having, foreign affairs from Australia or US State Department programs encouraging democracy. If anything, that can backfire.
All right, so with that, we want to go to the next part of this session is to break up into small groups so we continue this discussion. I believe that we started a really good discussion here. So we'll break up into two groups.